MrBeast has opened a theme park in Saudi Arabia. This is the first of 2 parks. The other will be built in the rubble of Gaza. Just don't let Benjamin see what you're building underneath that theme park, Jimmy. MrBeast, who has publicly voiced his ambition to become YouTube's first billionaire, has gotten a head start on those dreams by using, almost certainly, slave labor to build a theme park that poor people cannot attend. And also because it's in Saudi Arabia, neither can the gays. Which makes me think of the first video that can be filmed at Beastland, the 24-hour Chris Tyson Survival Challenge. Good luck, Chris. You're going to need it. When asked why he opened a theme park in Saudi Arabia, of all places, Jimmy said it's because most of his fans are overseas. Yeah, look, MrBeast, I'm not sure if many of your Indian fans can make it over to Saudi Arabia, unless, of course, you're talking about the indentured servants that have their passports taken before they complete the job. What an insane career trajectory. Do you reckon you're going to see one of these in MrBeast's Dear Me in 10 years videos? Like, he's going to upload it. It was filmed in 2016, and he just goes, I hope that in 10 years, I've replaced all of my teeth with porcelain and I'm enforcing Sharia law at a theme park. I'm Lewis Spears. Like, subscribe, and let's break it down. This is one of the craziest things a YouTuber has ever done that didn't happen virtually on a bridge or in a suicide forest. Building a theme park in Saudi Arabia is cool as fuck, man. I would like to do that, but you know, I don't really, I'm a little bit on the fence when it comes to slave labor. Let's have a look at the announcement video.
My brand new theme park opens up in less than 24 hours. This thing is the craziest thing I've ever done. I can't wait for you guys to experience this. Make sure you get your tickets before they sell out.
This is the craziest thing I've ever done, and what he's done is use slave labor to build a theme park for rich international travelers and Saudi oil barons. I mean, yeah, that's fucking crazy, man. What is wild is this whole thing looks like CGI. Like, he kind of came out of nowhere and announced he was building a theme park, and within 2 weeks it was built. And it went up so quickly that people were like, oh, this is obviously fake. It must not be finished yet. But Jimmy says, no, this is the real thing. Someone says, why is it 3D generated if it's going to be open tomorrow? MrBeast says that is a real unedited drone shot. And I think essentially why people think this is 3D generated is because no one with a Western mind can comprehend the speed that slaves can build shit for you. People are like, oh my God, how did you build it so quickly? You don't want to know. You know what it looks like? It looks like the fucking Chongqing. You know all those Chinese cities? You see them on TikTok and on YouTube of Americans walking around being like, oh my God, China's living in the future. And you look at it and it looks like the future, but then you look at it again and it's just a normal city with LEDs fucking everywhere, just light pollution. You know, we were lied to about flying cars being the future. The future isn't flying cars. The future is not being able to see the stars ever again, because some fuckwit wants to make a skyscraper purple. And granted, from the drone shot that he's done here, it does look really cool and really futuristic, but when you have a look at some of the videos of people walking through Beastland, you get the sense that it's just a normal theme park, but they've put LED lights everywhere.
First ever MrBeast theme park in the world here in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. We're going to take you around for the opening evening and show you all around what this place has to offer. Let's go.
Why does it look completely barren and empty? There doesn't seem very many people there at all. This looks really desolate, actually.
It's massive.
It's fucking empty, dude. Not to sound too negative, but if I was given access to slaves, I reckon I'd build something a lot cooler than what seems to be just an empty car park with LEDs shooting beams of light into the sky. I would build something fun, like the pyramids or, I don't know, a global cotton trade. This seems silly. This seems a wasteful use of slave labor. Like, if you give me access to slaves, I'm going to build something that's going to last a lot longer than 45 days. Okay, remember the good old days of slave labor where people were building monuments, churches that would stand for 1,000 years, a cross-country rail network? These are the things that we should be using slave labor for, not for building theme parks for YouTubers that last less than 2 months. But I don't want to judge them too harshly. Let's have a look at what Jimmy says MrBeast Land has. Our brand new theme park opens. We built custom games modeled after our videos that don't exist anywhere else, and we have the world's largest prize wall. I feel like having the world's largest prize wall in like the world's wealthiest country doesn't mean much. You know, how are you going to excite the kid whose father is done flexing with Rolexes and instead flexes by placing the heads of journalists on his table? You know what I mean? Like, how are you going to excite the kid who has a PlayStation 6 before release? Do you reckon the Instagram models are feeling a little bit jealous of MrBeast right now? You know, MrBeast got paid millions of dollars to build a theme park. The only thing these Instagram models get paid to do is shit on a shake's chest. That's a poor deal. Do you know what I mean? And I bet Jimmy's getting paid more money. That's the wage gap in action, man. There's a real sexism problem in Saudi Arabia. I don't know if you know this. Let's have a look at the games that Jimmy has been talking up. For example, we have the game called Tower Siege, where you load balls into real catapults and have them land in these giant 60-foot tubes for points. What's that based on? 9/11? That'd be a better game where you just, you know, you're firing planes at a giant building that Saudi Arabia allegedly may have had something to do with. Drop Zone is also exciting. 6 people are standing on trapdoors, a button lights up in front of each player, and whoever presses it last gets dropped. Last remaining gets the most points. Again, this feels like a game based on 9/11. You know, you're up too high, the stairwell's on fire. So you're in the drop zone. What's next? You're going to play the world's highest game of Rush the Hostage Taker? Yeah, you got a bunch of people standing in the kitchen calling their loved ones saying, we're going to try and rush him and see what happens. Heating up water. Then the plane turns upside down. That'll be a fun game. Dungeon Escape is pretty self-explanatory. Well, before I read the explanation, to me, that sounds like the average experience of a journalist critical of the royal family in Saudi Arabia. Dungeon Escape, except it's kind of a misnomer because there is no escape, and at the end of the maze, you just get your head chopped off. I didn't want this to be like a typical theme park. I created games I would love to play. Plus, of course, we have the roller coasters and rides. Anyway, MrBeast, of course, showed up to fucking Beastland. Here's him wandering around looking unbelievably overwhelmed and scared. Wow, Beastland looks amazing. Not a single woman in sight. Dude, if you're going to engage with the countries and business ventures like that, sure, get your money. All right, we all love a bag. I understand it's very stressful trying to figure out how to make money in the creator economy. But, you know, just being in a space where there's like, all right, no bitches, no gays, and don't you dare let me see a single one of the hairs on your head or I'll call you a whore. All right, it's just not the best look. You know what I mean? A lot of people have been questioning why he opened it up in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, especially since the Riyadh Comedy Festival resulted in a huge amount of backlash for a lot of comedians. What was the reasoning with the location? Jimmy says, middle of the world because a majority of my audience is outside America and we have a big Middle Eastern fan base. Wanted to give them a chance to participate. This was immediately community noted. To be clear, MrBeast chose Saudi Arabia because he signed a deal with the Saudi-funded Riyadh season earlier this year, and Beastland was part of the deal. I feel like this is something where one day MrBeast rocked up to his warehouse and a finance guy was like, oh, by the way, we've built an entire theme park in Saudi Arabia because they're doing this thing where they're giving away millions and millions of dollars to anyone who can do anything because they trying to transition away from oil. That's basically what this boils down to, is the Saudi Arabian royal family have made like a giant executive decision to try and transfer the company's reliance away from oil to other things. So that's why you're seeing things like the Riyadh Comedy Festival, where a lot of comedians got a lot of flack for performing in it. That's why you're seeing like these live golf tournament style things, the FIFA moving over to Saudi Arabia. So many different cultural events are now happening in Saudi Arabia because they've just opened up the bank vaults. They hit the bottom of the well and were like, fuck, we've only got 50 years of oil left. We better figure out some other version of the economy or we're fucked. I know a lot of people have gotten upset at a lot of their favorite artists and entertainers for engaging with the Saudi Arabian government or the royal family and doing these sorts of paid engagements. But personally, you know, as someone with a mortgage who struggles every month to pay it, I would love to be a jester for a slaver. I would love that. I would love to jump over to another country, tell my little jokes. Women aren't people. Being gay isn't real. You know, I come home with $5 million and then I open up a few franchises. I mean, that's the dream right now of every influencer, is get enough views where you can get paid to use slave labor to build a monument to your own ego in the desert. There are no patrons left anymore. Patrons used to actually pay world-talented artists just to do their art, to culturally enrich the world. Now, patrons are just like you, giving me $3 a month on my Patreon. And that's great. I love that. And you should sign up for it, and you get early access to podcasts and a bonus podcast every single week. And I would love for you to sign up for that. But what I would love even more is if you were a billionaire who made a lot of money out of the misery of those less fortunate, and, you know, was a slaver and had a lot of oil money and funded foreign wars and was, like, you know, kind of responsible for hundreds of thousands of deaths. I would love to do anything for you so that I don't have to worry about getting a brand deal for my YouTube channel, because that's really what this boils down to, is YouTubers stopped relying on Raid Shadow Legends to pay their rent, and now they want blood money to do it instead. This whole Riyadh cultural season thing seemingly has come out of nowhere, but it's actually something that has been running since 2019. Since 2019, Saudi Arabia has tried to turn Riyadh into a cultural hub, a cultural center of the world, by paying everyone they can afford to come out, and they can afford everyone. And a lot of people, you know, justifiably have been getting a lot of flack for participating in this. I have a bit more of a nuanced view. I think that it is good long-term for a lot of Westerners to be engaging with Saudi Arabia, because cultural exchanges go both ways. Of course, Saudi Arabia has done a lot of terrible things. They have a lot of human rights violations to their name. But I think one of the most effective ways to change that is through changing the culture. And if you isolate a people and don't engage with them at all, how could they possibly change their attitudes towards different types of people? If you leave people to be isolated, they cannot change. You look at North Korea, for example. They are locked in a certain culture because no other culture is able to, you know, influence them at all. Like, I know with the Riyadh Comedy Festival, a lot of comedians got a lot of shit. And a lot of them, you know, they got criticized fairly justly. Like, Bill Burr has been talking for years about people taking money from corrupt billionaires and how that's hypocritical. And then he goes and takes money from oil barons, and that came off as even more hypocritical. So I understand that. But one comedian I think about a lot that I think got really shafted with the Riyadh Comedy Festival was a comedian called Jessica Kirson. She is a Jewish lesbian woman, out and proud Jewish lesbian woman. She did Riyadh, and she did it on the condition that she could perform on stage as a Jewish lesbian woman and talk about being Jewish and especially being a lesbian, something which is punishable by a capital punishment in Saudi Arabia, right? So really illegal. She went and performed, and she ended up getting so much backlash that she apologized and donated 100% of the money that she was paid to a charity organization. I think that it is actually incredibly brave of her to do that, and a lesbian Jewish woman getting on stage and being lesbian and Jewish to an audience and making them laugh, being likable and showing them that she is not evil, that she's not bad for being who she is, that being a lesbian Jewish woman is just being a person. That's one of the only ways that attitudes against other races and sexualities can actually change, is by actually interacting with each other and realizing that, oh, we're actually pretty similar, right? And she, in her apology, said that so many gay people in Saudi Arabia reached out to her with tears of gratitude and joy that they were able to finally see themselves on stage and see someone who is proudly gay and not being punished for it. That shit changes the world. Soft power, cultural power is incredibly powerful and impactful because it changes the mindset and the viewpoints of the people, which the governments think and like to believe that they control, but actually they don't. If enough people believe something, the government has to move with them or they lose power. So I actually think that all of these cultural exchanges are long-term good. They're not perfect, and there's a lot to criticize people for doing them about. Like, you know, Jimmy almost undoubtedly partook in slave labor to build these theme parks, and that's wrong. But him going over to Saudi Arabia westernizes Saudi Arabia. It goes both ways. So it is interesting to me. I'm not fully committed to this opinion, but it's kind of, after thinking about it a lot, where I have landed. I'd be interested to know what you think of my take on the whole Riyadh Comedy Festival, the Riyadh cultural exchange thing in general. So it's like, yeah, all of these entertainers are compromising their own morals by engaging with this. That's true as well. But I kind of think that across the long term view of everything, it's probably going to end up better for everyone, because the only way that governments and countries and royal families change their attitudes is via cultural exchange and the very, very slow, onerous progress that is sharing with each other and realizing that different types of people are not evil. They're just different types of people. I'm Lewis Spears. Like, subscribe. Talk to you soon.